When you when you reach out to someone, and I teach this DM method to everyone, I call it my $1,000,000 DM concept, is you reach out with a compliment that's genuine, okay? Like you can't copy and paste the same compliment to the same 5 different people. So it's a genuine compliment, and then you ask them an open-ended question that drives the conversation where you want it to go. So for example, if I wanted to be on your podcast, right? I'd give a genuine compliment like, oh my gosh, I love the episode about Aquania.
Welcome back, everybody, to another exciting show, the About That Wallet podcast, where we help you build strong financial habits. We actually focus on the sandwich generation so that they can actually spend money, talk about money, and even enjoy their money with confidence. And I have the awesome opportunity to bring on somebody who is really helping out women to be the best that they can be in all that they can be, not in the army, but in their business. So how are you doing today, Ro?
Hi, I'm great. And thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited for everything that we're going to talk about on the show.
Awesome. First off, I'm glad that you're excited on this Friday. I mean, you could be doing anything else.
No, yeah, when I heard about your show and we were talking about this in the green room, how you have so many successes on your podcast, I was like, I want to give back and teach a little bit, showcase a little bit about what's possible for women or really just anyone with a business.
Yeah. And when it comes to business, and because I'm focusing on the sandwich generation, what is it about business that excites you the most?
I think it's just like no cap for your income or what's possible. So speaking of the sandwich generation, I don't have a family, like I don't have kids, but I have older parents. And what I noticed is when I was still at my 9 to 5, a lot of people were in the sandwich generation. They were taking care of their own kids, but then taking care of their parents. I'm like, 60, 80,000 sometimes is just not going to cut it if you want to live a high quality lifestyle in the United States. And when I got rejected for my first promotion, I'm like, something's got to change. A man in a conservative company is not going to give me my lifestyle, so I have to go fight for it myself. So when he said no to my promotion, I was like, screw that, I'm going to go start my own business. So yeah, I think a business really helps you get out of the squeeze that you feel in a sandwich generation.
Yeah. And because you've had that experience, from doing all of that and actually experiencing something like that, I do apologize that you had to go through that. But what is it, besides seeing like the lack of women in finance, that really kind of drive you to continue doing what you do?
Yeah, I'll give some background. So I started as a consultant, and then I went as a software engineer. And in both realms, I always thought there weren't a lot of men in either industry. But I think what hit home for me is when I would have conversations with my coworkers, and they would always quote like Dave Ramsey or these white guys in finance, and I'm like, I don't have anyone to quote. I think at the time, Budgetnista was still like there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 5-10 years ago, but she wasn't as big as she is right now. And I was like, where are the women of color or people who look like me that I can quote? I can be like, look at her book or look at her podcast. They didn't exist, or they weren't as popular as some of these like guy influencers. So I was like, okay, I need to use my skill set and help more women entrepreneurs learn about money, understand like there are more women of color in the financial industry that they can talk to. So it was really just from anger that I focused on my niche. I was like, I need to make sure that all the women of color in the financial industry are at the top. So they get like the book deals, they get the podcast episodes, they get the publicity money that goes to them on CNN versus like the other guys. So that's how it all started.
And what other like observations that you made in like your corporate that kind of led you to focus on sales coaching specifically?
Yeah, I actually would say like every day before I went into my 9 to 5, I would walk down this long hallway. It was like a 10-minute walk from like walking into the door of the building to my actual office. And I was just listening to podcast episodes of different successful entrepreneurs. And a through line that they all had was they were all focusing on sales. Their first job was sales, or they got their start to real money through sales. So I was like, oh, I thought sales was like selling cars, not really something super lucrative. And then I learned about the world of like high ticket sales. I actually started as selling my own lead generation services. I was an agency before I moved into
Nice.
consulting. And that lead generation agency outperformed my 9 to 5. We hit 150K in the first year. But I was like, oh, I'm onto something. Sales is the key. And then fast forward a couple years later, now I teach sales to a lot of women of color. Yeah.
So for somebody that's listening right now and just thinking about, okay, sales is something that I really want to get into. And I'm thinking about taking it outside of just selling a product, but you also got to sell yourself too.
Yeah.
And even though it might not be the best version of you, you might sell like the facade so that you can actually get what you want. Can you talk about what is a good sales tactic that you found has always hit every time?
That's really funny that you say that, of like a facade, because I actually think the best salespeople are the ones that are just authentically themselves, right? Because you can only fake it till you make it for so long until you have to morph into being that person. But the best sales tactic I would say is follow up. So I give this story all this time. There was this one person I followed up with 7 times. Most people would have given up after they leave you unseen, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I followed up with her 7 times and she ended up becoming a client for 2 years. So that's like $20,000 in sales. It was worth it to me. Did it hurt my ego a little bit that she kept leaving me on red? Of course, right? But follow up is key because it's not about you. Like they might be busy with their kids. They might be busy with the school year, with their 9 to 5, with their boss. So if someone is leaving you on red, or if they're liking your message, or not responding, I wouldn't take that personally. I would just keep following up until they either tell you to not talk to them, or you have a discussion with them. So I would say be relentless, be shameless. Because if you're not making the type of money you want, you need to start being shameless about how you follow up. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm thinking of how many times I've been rejected and even getting guests on the show. And I mean, you run a podcast as well, and just kind of push it out there like, hey, I like your story. Would you want to come on the show? And then they were like, nah, I'm good. And then it's like,
Yeah.
well, do you continue on, or do you say like, try to pitch it to them a different way? Do the green eggs and ham method, or?
I think I kind of equate it to dating, right? You don't want to choose one person and like wait for that one person to text you back. It feels like you're clingy, it's desperate. Reach out to as many podcasts as possible. And then if you come across that podcast that rejected you again, just be like, hey, it's been a while. Do you still not want me on your show? I'd love to come back into the loop. It helps you detach from like that one person making a decision about you. I always say, just like if you get rejected from a job, you could apply to other jobs. You don't have to cling on to the one that doesn't want you. Go after the people that celebrate you.
Yeah. And because you help so many people in different types of businesses, is there like a particular formula, like a flat formula, besides the follow-up side of the house? So do you say like, hey, my name is so-and-so, or is it, hey, I see you doing this product. Let's do this.
I'll give you my favorite 2-step strategy.
Two-step.
When you reach out to someone, and I teach this DM method to everyone, I call it my $1 million DM concept, is you reach out with a compliment that's genuine, okay? Like you can't copy and paste the same compliment to the 5 different people. So it's a genuine compliment, and then you ask them an open-ended question that drives the conversation where you want it to go. So for example, if I wanted to be on your podcast, right? I'd give a genuine compliment like, oh my gosh, I love the episode about Aquania. It was really great about XYZ. And then I'd ask, are you taking any guests right now? And it drives, the psychology is it drives the human need of like giving a compliment. The other person wants to be complimented, but it also drives what I want to do, which is get on someone's podcast or make a sale. So 2 steps: compliment, ask an open-ended question.
Short and sweet. Because I do get a lot of those emails like, hey, I was just listening to so-and-so episode. And I was like, did you really listen to it? Because it's like, what did you pull out of it? And they don't say what they pulled out of it. They didn't
because it's not genuine.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, great.
It's not a genuine compliment. I always say, it's like when you pass someone walking on the street and you compliment them on their shoes or their hair. It's not strategic. You didn't like formulate the compliment when you saw them from super far away. It's just natural. You were like, oh, I really like this about your podcast, or oh, I really like this about your outfit. It's genuine. It doesn't feel very strategic. That makes sense.
It does. It perfectly does. Because I was just giving a lady a compliment on her glasses when she was just coming out of the car. It was an older lady, like she had a cane and everything. And she had like these thick Java colored glasses. And I was like, oh, there's some really unique glasses. It's really nice. And she was like, oh, thank you. Like with a British accent and everything. I was like, this is great. But
it's a great opener to start the conversation. I'm sure you could have asked her about her accent and then had a whole conversation with her. Yeah.
I had that kind of time.
Yeah. But that's just a simple way to start making sales or start a sales conversation with your ideal clients. Yeah.
Okay. So now we know how to sell on a digital front. How do we sell our person in face to face?
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I actually thought in-person selling was so not me, because the whole point I started my business is I never wanted to be in an office again. I never wanted to have a commute. I never wanted to be on the highway in my car going from place A to B. So when I thought of selling in person, I had the immediate ick. But what I've learned is recently in October of last year in 2024, I got invited to an event. And I'm like, I have not gone to a business event in a long time, pretty much since the pandemic happened. So I was like, okay, let me start. And I actually became a speaker for that event. So instead of trying to network, which is you trying to meet a million people, it's easier for you to be on stage talking. So people naturally come to you to ask questions about your talk. I would say if you're one of those people that are just going to a million conferences and not getting any sales because you're one in a million fish that are in that conference center, see if you can get on stage, because it elevates you. It makes you stand out from the crowd, and it puts you in a position of being credible. And the way you could do that is just the two-step method. Compliment whoever is running the event, and then ask them a question to get to where you want to be if you could speak on stage.
And my next thing is, what is the follow-up then? Because you get them started, and then, okay, they started talking, and you'd be like, crap, what are I supposed to talk about now? Or just kind of just go with the flow?
Yeah, so I say going with the flow in a sales conversation leads to no sales. So usually you start with a compliment, ask a question, and then you start learning, depending on what service you're selling, you ask about their goals and challenges. And once you know that information, you take it from the DMs to Zoom. You're like, oh, would love to talk to you. Do you want to get on a Zoom call? Let's talk about your challenges and how I can help you. Here you go. And that you can usually do that in one day.
Nice.
You don't need emails. You don't need ads. You don't need all this fancy stuff. You could just go straight to the source.
Well, you mentioned ads. What do you dislike about ads?
I would say ads are fine, but you need to know what you're doing with them. Like I think a lot of entrepreneurs that are less than $50,000 in revenue, they spend a lot of money on ads before they mastered the basics of sales conversations, closing calls. I think I've heard this story so many times where people will spend maybe $100 to $1,000 in ads and not get anything. And it's just because you're trying to skip steps. You're trying to skip steps to learn how to have sales conversations, learn how to close the deal with ads. And it's kind of like trying to cheat on a test that you didn't prepare for. Yeah.
So how do we not cheat? What are the steps?
Let's
walk us through.
Yeah, I would say one master, like if you have never made a sale, start with making a sale on your own before you buy into ads. You will hear success stories where someone just created a product yesterday and they spent $100 on ads and they made $1 million. Those are exceptions to the rule. And you could totally be that exception, but you could make a sale for free with the DM method I just taught you, or spend $100 and make no sales, right? It's up to you how risky you want to be and what's worth your time and energy. But in terms of going to ads, learn how to do sales conversations, close a couple sales of your own product or service, and then start experimenting with ads.
All right. And then is there like a closing method as well, as far as like, all right, cool, we see what you like, try it out, or do you want to buy?
Yeah, so actually, if you go to my website, the roshah.com/email series, you're going to get like a 5-step method that we teach. So we set the intention on the call, you ask about the goals, the challenges, then you give them a plan and then you pitch them. And it's very simple. It doesn't require a script, anything like that. It's just a framework that make sure you check all the boxes. Did I ask about their goals? Did I ask about their challenges? Did I pitch them yet? But yeah, we have that whole checklist on our website, but it's very simple. Like it doesn't need to be this high pressure situation like you see on the car lots.
Yeah, and that gets me to think of almost how I run the podcast show. It's kind of being more interested instead of interesting to kind
Hmm.
of help the person open up a little bit more to, because it's about the guest. It's about the person you really want to know and how you're going to get to know them if you're constantly talking. It's like,
I think that's a great point. And I also run my own podcast, and I always tell my clients if you're talking the majority of the time on a sales call, you're losing the sale. It's not about you. Stop talking and let them talk. Because if you notice, if and now with AI you could tell, but if you notice you're talking the majority of the time on a sales call, you're probably not going to make the sale because it's not about you, it's about them, and you don't know anything about them if you've been yapping for like 50 out of the 60 minutes that you have.
yeah, I was playing around. Somebody did not believe me when I said the best sales book is Green Eggs and Ham. And he was like, "What do you mean by Green Eggs and Ham's a sales book?" I'm like, the dude was sitting there trying to sell him on Green Eggs and Ham the whole time, trying out these different things instead of just asking him a basic question. Hey, you want to try something more exclusive, something that's new on the market? Are you in the market for trying out something new? How about you just try this for size? Or so many people have tried this already and they seem to love it. Would you try it? Like so many different ways he could have closed the sale a lot faster. That's my thought on it.
Yeah, I haven't read that book in a while, but it's like just talking to your people, right?
Mhm.
Instead of, uh, I think a little bit of it is about ego. Just because you have a product that you love doesn't mean everyone's going to love it. So you need to talk to people about it.
That's true. Because not everybody's your customer, right?
Not everyone's your
Right.
customer. And I learned it. I feel like I've always been in sales, even when I was working in luxury like web design. I worked at Saks Fifth Avenue, and we got to go to these sample sales. I saw Chanel on the racks, all of that. And I saw them selling it for $150 when in malls it was like $1,000. And I realized the value of things is different where you place them. So even though you might also be in the wrong spot, if you're trying to sell your service on Facebook in front of a bunch of 9-to-5ers that have never bought anything for $5,000 versus you go to an Instagram community that understands the value of a $5,000 service, you're going to have a different experience too.
Okay. So are you really selling an experience at this point or the product?
Are you talking about in my own business?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say right now we sell mostly the service, right? So we consult a lot of businesses on how they can increase their sales. And a lot of times it is not mind blowing. It's probably something that was staring you in the face the whole time. And then in 60 minutes, I'm like, this is the one thing you need to do. I'll give you an example. We had this one client that's a bakery in Chicago, already doing like $1 million a year. I think they're called Brown Sugar Bakery. We worked with them a couple of years ago. They're a bakery, right?
Right.
But they did not have the basics of like email setup. They had hundreds of, I don't know if it's hundreds of thousands, but they had hundreds of customers. And I'm like, where are all their email addresses so you can like send them coupons, send them Valentine's Day promotions? They didn't have it. They were just collecting all this information and not using it. So most of the time, if you want to make more sales, the data is right in front of you. Yeah.
So we understand that because sometimes there's some of the steps that we miss when we just excited about, hey, we started something. We just want people to come in and buy the stuff at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And you're talking about the follow up. You're talking about the follow through now with the uh, email capture and bringing on, I guess you could say, almost a new clientele because now they're getting discounts to kind of lock in that user.
Hmm.
So I think one step that I want to capture is how do we find our ideal client, or how can women really identify their ideal client?
I would say the easiest one is your ideal client is usually you. It's some past version of you, or future version of you. So I remember when I first started, my mentor made me write out a whole sheet of like who I was looking for, who I wanted to be, blah, blah, blah. When I was looking at that sheet, I'm like, oh, this is my best friend. Like I knew her like the back of my hand. And when I wrote out all her details, even down to like her hair and eye color, it was a very specific type of ideal client worksheet. It was like, oh, I talk to this girl every day. I know her like the back of my hand. So let me sell to her because I know her really well. Sell to people that are like her. And that's how my business kind of blew up because I knew my ideal client because that ideal client was me or my best friend. I think a lot of times if you try to sell to an ideal client that you don't have any interaction with, you look phony. I'll give you an example. A lot of times I see entrepreneurs trying to sell to doctors. They have no experience with a doctor. They don't have anyone in their family that's gone through medical school and medical training. So when a doctor sees you and they see that you're targeting doctors just because they make a lot of money, they know that it feels fake from a mile away. Versus one of my mentors, she's always had like, I think when she was very young, she had like heart surgery as a baby. And then she's had plastic surgery to cover up the scars. Then she created a practice around helping surgeons. But she had a really authentic story. She's been in a surgeon's office since she was like 2 years old. So she could connect with them. Versus someone off the street that's like, I'm going to target surgeons because they make millions of dollars. The story isn't there, so it's harder to connect with that audience.
I like that. So you bring up the concept of story, and I like how we piecing this all together.
Yeah.
Here, is that when you have your story, I think that's one of the things I've always been told is your story sells the product more so than the product selling itself. So like this microphone that I'm using, and a lot of people ask like, man, your audio sounds really good. And I was like, yeah, because I've been through a lot of crappy mics before. As I was evolving, I finally landed at this one. But now that I've gotten here, I'm like, okay, my story behind it is that I really wanted to provide a better audio experience. And one of the things is that I kind of wish I've known before is that there's another mic that is a step down from this that has both USB and XLR. And that could have saved me a lot of money instead of buying a whole nother $500 mixer just to kind of use this microphone. And it's just one of those things as a thing to help. I know it's a bad analogy, but it's just kind of like, what is your story behind your product? So if we can dive into your story behind your product, how did you get started?
Yeah, I think it's like, I mentioned it before, but you know, it's like not seeing enough women in the financial industry, seeing like having conversations with my coworkers and not being able to point to a famous woman of color in finance that be like, I learned investing from her. And I think what you pointed out is so important. Storytelling is more important than credentials sometimes. Unfortunately, right now, like you see the US election and someone with the most credentials who has the education, who has been in government for years, she didn't win. And it's just because the person with the best storytelling skills won. And that's just really unfortunate, but it's just human nature. People will buy the story more than the credentials. And I think even the best business owners, they have a really good story, but they might not have like the Harvard degree, right? And the person with the Harvard degree might make good money, but it won't be as good as an entrepreneur with a really, really good story.
I totally love it. Because I mean, if you think about it, they say, at least when I was going through college, they were saying is that all the C and B students will be your entrepreneurs and actually running the businesses, whereas your A students will be the workers. And it took me until I became an adult to start to see that. Because like you said, like, you know, as people of color, we always do an extra mile, like getting the certifications, getting the degrees. And it's like, you look at the person that's your supervisor and be like, you don't have a degree. You might get so like, I know not to compare degrees, but the accolades they go through.
I think it's so important because I think honestly, you need both. Not only do you need the degree, but you need, because I think the myth is like, you don't need a college degree to be successful. And I think personally, in my own experience, I don't think I would have gotten a job without a college degree. I could have a good story, but I need both. I need a great degree. I need to have great credentials, and I need to be really good at storytelling. So it's like, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to put it, you almost need both, but don't rely on your credentials. only. You need to get really good at telling your story. And I think a lot of times we don't have the opportunity to brag about ourselves enough, so we don't build up that skill.
Yeah. How do you formulate a good story? Do you go over storytelling in your process?
I do. And I'll be honest, for a long time, I didn't think storytelling was important at all. Until I started going to these in-person events and people wanted to know my story, I was like, oh my God, I gotta start talking about it. But storytelling really it has to feel true, right? It's even if you don't know what your story is, just write. If you look at every year of your life, you can start piecing it together. 5th grade, I did this. In 7th grade, I did this. In college, I did this. And then the story is just going to come out. If you're not if you don't feel very creative about your storytelling, stick with the facts, and the facts will tell you your story. Yeah.
I like that. I like that. So, you talked about your parents a little bit. What is it about them that kind of driven you to continue doing what you're doing?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in 2008, when the recession happened, I think I was in middle school or elementary school. I can't remember, but they were stressed out, and I had no clue why. I remember my earliest memory of that time was like they couldn't buy the school photos that they come out with every year, and I thought it was weird because they love those photos. And then a decade later, I found out that they lost all their money in the 2008 recession, and it was very scary to find out because they were immigrants. They came here. They worked very hard. They worked like 2-3 jobs at the same time. And to learn that they lost all their money in the stock market in 2008 sucked because we did not have the financial literacy or the education. And it's all like, it's a snowball effect. Like I told you the story about my 9 to 5 and my coworkers, but really understanding that entrepreneurship is going to give you no cap on your income. And me being an entrepreneur, I can help my parents in a way that I could never do with my 9 to 5. I recently took them on vacation with my sister to Portugal. I would never have been able to do that with my 9 to 5. Not even just taking off the PTO, but being able to make the type of money I want to kind of help them and give back to them, and also just spoil them. I want to treat them really well. You can't always do that with a 9 to 5.
Yeah, and that's good that you continue on to give back and continue on to thrive for the family unit. And that's really beautiful that you're taking out time to do that.
Yeah, and I would say if you're listening to this and be like, oh, that's so easy for Roma. No, it took like years. And if you want to do that for yourself and your family, start small. Like just start thinking about your ideal client. We went through kind of the whole sales process during your podcast, right? But just follow the steps and see where you can go to kind of achieve your dreams. It's all possible. You just have to kind of stay committed to the vision.
What is it in the financial bucket that actually helps you save up to actually take that trip for your family?
I'm going to sound crazy because I don't hear a lot of people talking about it because they want to make other people feel good about where they're at. But I live really like a college student. The first 2-3 years out of college, I lived in the cheapest housing I could find. I lived alone. My rent was about like $12.50. I know that's very hard right now if you try to find an apartment in New Jersey, New York at that price. But I was willing to keep my costs low so I could contribute like 70% of my paycheck to my investments. And that meant like let's say I made $5,000 that month, I would try to contribute $4,000 or like whatever was my rent payment. And then the rest of it would go straight into my brokerage accounts, into my index funds, into maxing out my 401k. It was not fun. I felt crazy, but I was like, I really wanted to hit the first 100K as fast as possible. And that meant I had to contribute as much of my paycheck as I could. And then when I realized that wasn't enough, that's when I started my business too. I'm like, the paycheck is not going to cut it for me to hit $1 million before the age of 30.
Yeah. Why 100K?
I think I was jealous. I saw other people, like a lot of it is just, I'm being super honest. Like I would see online that this girl hit 100K by 25. And I'm like, I'm 22. How is that going to happen for me? I need to hustle. I need to do these things. And it was just truly just like a little bit of jealousy. I was like, why can these people do it and not me? And that's what kind of forced me, motivated me. I always knew that I wanted to be successful and extremely wealthy. And I was like, if someone can do it, why can't I? Now, that did cost a lot of stress and pressure on myself, but I have no regrets. I did what I needed to do to get to that amount, and I did it. Yeah.
Awesome. And it just shows that competition can either break you or make you. And it seemed like it really pushed you.
I would say, and I'm being super honest, like a lot of time, I don't like negative feelings like jealousy or anger. I think they get a bad rap, but I actually think it's a good indicator for what you want in life. If you're jealous of someone or something, you probably want it. So you need to work towards it. If you're angry about something, you need to change your situation. So work towards it. Instead of using those emotions and saying that you're a bad person, just lean into them and do what you need to do to get out of that.
Love that. Love that. Because this brings up, I'm going to focus on going on to the third segment here, which is the features. Mostly because as you bring up the anger and the passion, I will say it's more passion. Give me more passion.
Sure. Sure. Whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Like what areas do you want to focus on improving in your life or even your career?
Yeah. So I have a couple of things in the pipeline. But speaking was one of them, right? Like, I know we mentioned in the green room that I'm speaking in front of 200 people in DC in April of this year. And that's really exciting. And that's something that a skill set that I was kind of hiding from for a long time. I started my business during my 9 to 5. So that meant I was hiding from a lot of people. So I wouldn't get fired or, I wouldn't risk a promotion. But now as a full-time entrepreneur, I can really be seen in ways that if someone sees me that used to work at my company, I don't care. It's not going to hurt my reputation. So I'm just working on playing bigger. I don't need to hide my social media or my face or my name. Like I'm just working on the publicity side of things because there's nothing at stake as much when I was at my 9 to 5.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And do you have any like habits that you feel are essential for all the entrepreneurs that are out there that are listening?
That's a good question. I know it's like so popular to say like you wake up at X day or do this every day. I would just say, don't feel bad for who you are. Like if you need to watch 5 hours of Netflix to work 12 hours on your business, that's okay. If you like waking up at 10 a.m. instead of 5 a.m., that's okay. Like lean into who you naturally are instead of feeling bad that you can't do the same thing as the next person. And I say that from my own example. I'm not a morning person and I do need a lot of downtime before I work on my business. And I stopped beating myself up about it. I just accepted it. I'm like, how can I just work this into my schedule so that I can make the type of money I want to? So stop making yourself wrong for things that you do a lot of the time. That might be your secret weapon.
Yeah. And also you running the podcast and I know how it is to run one and to do the speaking and to deal with the clients. It's a lot. Do you have any like AI systems that are going to help out with that process? Or?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. So one of the biggest things that helped me grow so fast was hiring. But now with the world changing so much, I hired a lot in 2021, but actually in the past year, I've let go of the majority of my team because they've been able to be replaced with a lot of tools and automations that I put in place. If you go to my Instagram, the Ro Shah, TheRoShah, right when you go to our link in bio, there's like a automation checklist of all the free AI tools that we use between video editing, repurposing, follow-up, right? Automating follow-up. All those things can kind of be done for free nowadays. So you don't really need an admin or a VA to do it for you. So you could definitely check out the whole checklist for free on there.
Awesome. We will be checking that out because I use very few when it comes to interacting with people. Mm-hmm. But I do use it from editing the show and putting things out there and all that fun stuff. So
yeah, we could talk about it too. Yes. Like what automations you can use too.
Definitely. So is there anything you have before we dive into the final 4 questions?
No, I'm good. Yeah.
Alrighty. Number 1, what does wealth mean to you?
It means not asking for permission from anyone or anything. So when you have true wealth, you don't need to ask someone if you can go on vacation, or you don't need to worry about if this flight is the cheapest on this day, because you could just buy it. It's really just getting a lot of your time back. Yeah.
Okay. Number 2, what was your worst money mistake?
Oh, that's good. Car lease.
Why the car lease?
I thought I'm really big on values, and I'm a huge environmentalist. So when EV cars came out, I got really excited about them, and I got a Nissan Leaf. They don't have charging stations in around my state, and it's very hard to charge your car. So that kind of put me in a bind of like where to charge the car. But it's a very cheap lease. You're only limited to a 200-mile range. Yeah.
Awesome. Number 3,
Yeah.
what book that inspired your journey or changed your perspective?
I'll say this. I went to Barnes and Noble's yesterday, and I was looking at the business section. I pretty much read every single book in the business section. And I say this on every podcast, I wish someone would just put a banner over the business section for inspiring entrepreneurs and be like, hire someone. Because I read every book, and it took me like 5 years before I started a real business that made real money as in over 100K. But I needed to hire someone. I needed to put my money where my mouth is. So I would say stop reading the books and just hire someone to help you do the things, because reading only gets you so far. Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe you might start the first book that says hire someone. Like that is
one page, just one
Just
page. One page, just hire someone. Here's the list of who
Right.
I've hired in the past.
And in the back of the extra pages is lessons learned.
Did you hire someone yet? Yeah.
Love it. I'll buy it. Number 4, what is your favorite dish to make?
This is so funny. Because I just asked my sister to like put together a Valentine's Day dinner for me and my friends. And she's like, all you need is like rice, protein, and vegetables. But that's my favorite daily dish to make. It's like, it just checks off all the boxes, and then I can go back to work. But my favorite dish to really, humor aside, my favorite dish to probably make is dosa. It's like an Indian dish. It's like an Indian crepe, and it's delicious. I love it.
Awesome. All right. So, we went through all the fun things, learned all the things about you, and congratulations on your upcoming speech in front of 200 women. That's a lot. And is there any place that people say like, hey, I love what you have to offer. I've went through, love the episode. I want to work with you, or even just kind of get to know you and reach out to say like, hey, awesome interview.
Mm-hmm.
Where can they find out more about you?
They can definitely go to any platform. If you like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. I'm on Instagram the most, but you could definitely send me a DM at the Ro Shah, TheRoShah, and just shoot me a message and I'll send you whatever you need. So if you like the automation stuff we talked about, I'll send you my automation checklist. If you like the sales call stuff we talked about, I'll send you the free sales call checklist. Just grab the resources you need, but let me know what you want. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Ro. This has been amazing. I've learned a lot, and this is something that I do plan on to lean more into because I do have some services that I need to get off the ground, or just really just let people know about it, because a lot of people just think I'm a podcaster. So
Yeah.
I do a lot more. So let's go on and make this happen. So thank you so much for coming through. And for you who listened all the way this far, you know what you got to do. And if sales isn't your thing, go ahead on and share it with somebody who is into sales or into business and just really want to take themselves to the next level. Remember, you have what it takes to take yourself to the next level. You just have to do the work. All right, everybody. I wish you the best. Y'all be safe. I'm out. Peace.